You're watching CN2 News. Two Chester County principals wanted to make a difference during the pandemic. They started Create and Educate LLC to help educators and parents during some tough times. They're focusing on literacy and leadership. CN2's R.E.A.L.L. Jackson has more on how they're helping the community.
Create and Educate, we are a consulting firm that works with educators as well as entrepreneurs. So with the side where we're working with educators, we offer professional development on literacy as well as implicit bias. We work with leaders and leadership teams to help improve schools.
They've been surviving pandemic education by offering tips for school leaders, teachers, and parents.
We really want to see kids through the trajectory, graduating from high school, ready to go to college or to start a career or to go into the military.
Create and Educate has multiple community partners in the area that read books to children weekly, discuss literature, and express their support for the education system. Recently, the owners were featured for Amazon's #1 best-selling book entitled Women Who Lead in Education.
And so we are super, super excited because we're amongst a family of women leaders who are absolutely extraordinary. So it's an honor to have been asked to participate. And then even more of an honor now that the book has gone on sale and it became a #1 bestseller. So you don't have to be a school leader to have leadership qualities.
Collectively, both Tammy Taylor, principal of Great Falls Elementary, and Dr. Sheka Houston, principal of Chester Middle School, have 40 years of service in education. They have learned the need in their community, and they plan to
serve all children in all communities. And one of the things that we enlighten people about in our professional development with literacy is that sometimes it's hard for children to connect to text because they don't see themselves in text. Providing that culturally relevant literature for students, and that's not just African American students, that's all students. Every student at every school should be able to see themselves in a book, in a text, to be able to connect with it.
Surviving pandemic education together in Chester, R.E.A.L.L. Jackson, CN2 News.
Again, their goal is to help connect educators, parents, community members, and authors each week to help better navigate the pandemic. To learn more about Create and Educate LLC, simply follow them on Facebook or at their website at createandeducate.com.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Tammy.
Good morning, Sheka. Good morning, everybody.
Thank you all and welcome to the R.E.A.L.L. Academy. I'm Dr. Sheka Houston and Principal Taylor, and I really hope that everything that we're sharing in the R.E.A.L.L. Academy is a true help to you all. We definitely want to pay it forward and provide help to educators, parents, and leaders. As leaders, we needed more help, so we wanted to pay it forward by providing that for everyone. So the R.E.A.L.L. Academy is based on Create and Educate's 5 super strengths to a resilient school. Our framework is based in the research behind Mr. Ron Edmonds. And this morning, we're going to be talking about, should we reconsider how special education is managed? And it's really funny that we're just getting off from Principal Hurd, and we had not spoken to him about our topic or his topic, but they definitely coincide with one another. Right, Tammy? And good morning again.
Yes, the topics definitely are overlapping this morning. And all I can say, I guess, is great minds, right? Because Principal Hurd, we really appreciate you. And you absolutely were spot on this morning. Sheka and I were just talking about that normal distribution and how there is such a disproportionate number of students in special ed. And yes, so many of those students are Black boys. So thank you so much for that amazing session. That was fire, and we appreciate you and those strategies that you gave us this morning. So it was quite an amazing session. And speaking of sessions, I want to just say that Sheka is actually at SCASB this morning, where she's going to be doing a phenomenal presentation on special education as well. The presentation is absolutely out of this world. Sheka, it is absolutely awesome, and I know that people are going to so benefit from being in that session. I really do love how you've packed so much power into that hour that you're going to have people. I think that my favorite part, though, is actually going to be when you discuss how to reverse that inversion of the MTSS pyramid with strengthening that tier 1 instruction in classrooms. So I know you're going to do well. I'm praying that all will be well for you.
Well, thank you, Tammy. And some of you may be wondering, well, how has Tammy heard the presentation? She's heard it 1,000 times, gone over it with me. So thank you, Tammy, for being my ear. And I am really excited about presenting about this topic, because as the MTSS I'm a part of the MTSS team for our district. I'm the director of secondary interventions, but that is what we've noticed, is that, you know, you're supposed to have 80% of your students in tier 1 instruction, but that's not what we have. Our triangle is, you know, upside down. And so when you have that inverted triangle, you have to have strategies in place that are going to improve tier 1 instruction, because if you don't start there, all of your other efforts are not going to be successful, because you're just kind of putting yourself in a hamster wheel per se. So thank you all for joining us. Principal Kafele, we appreciate you joining us, and thank you. And Principal Hurd, as well as Mr. Tovar, and all of you that are joining us this morning. We really appreciate you. So we're going to go ahead and get started, so we can definitely get out of Principal Kafele's way, because he is up next. But one of the things, as I was researching for my topic today, I'm providing special education updates as from a MTSS lens. The thing that I found is, you know, should we consider changing how special education programs are managed? And one of the things that I found is that students who are ages 3 to 21 identified for special education programs, that number of students being continue to be entered into special education has grown. It grew for the 7th consecutive year. That was in 2017 and 18. And it's continuing to grow, and the demand for special education is continuing to go higher. So when we think about, are we improving things for students in special education programs, if we're continuing to identify more students, there must be something there that is not happening. So one of the reasons for that increase, there are more and more students with autism being identified. That is on the rise, but the largest representation of those students in the category of special education are those with learning disabilities. So when you think about how it's managed in our district, we have one special education director. She's over all of the special education programs for the district, and we're in a small district. However, when I look at her and what she's doing and all of the different hands and things that she's responsible for, to include making sure the curriculum is there for K through 12, meeting with parents, making sure that everyone is in compliance, going to those state meetings, facilitating the budget for special education. That's a lot of irons in the fire for a lot of people. And when we look at that, the way it's managed, you know, you kind of say, well, no wonder we're not getting as far as we need to be, because special education directors are really given some of the outlandish recommendations that principals are given when they say, hey, here are the keys, good luck, hope you do a good job, and that's all the support that you get. They really need a lot more support than that. And what I found was that they need more collaboration. It needs to be a collaborative effort for special education directors and leaders, because what they have found in areas where they are experiencing growth is that model has benefited the special education directors, where they're collaborating with the people who have been identified as those instructional experts, like the chief academic officers or the people that are over instruction, or the principals who sometimes feel left out of the whole process because they are not brought into conversations. So the way that it's managed probably needs to change in many places. And if you all that are joining us, if you have great success in your district or your state with special education, tell us how your area is managing special education.
Please share. I think that it can be so overwhelming to have so much responsibility and to know that the bottom line always is going to go back to, are we benefiting the children? Like, are we moving these children in the right direction? And I love that about what Principal Hurt was saying this morning. Sometimes we get kids there and they just get stuck, which is not the purpose of special ed. We're supposed to be providing them with the support that they need at that time so that we can move them back into a regular education. So I think you're absolutely right, though, Sheka. And I know it sounds kind of cliche coming from us because collaboration is what we preach. That's what we do. And we are always talking about how we're here for one another. But I believe that that might be the answer, because if you allow those spaces for collaboration, you have more people on deck to get done what needs to happen. And to me, the person or the people who are going to benefit the most from that are the children.
Exactly. And, hearing that the numbers of students entering special education is growing, and hearing Principal Hurt talk about how 80% of Black boys, Black and brown boys, are represented in that number that we mentioned that are represented in special education, is really alarming. And we need to do more to make sure that from the top is being managed effectively, because if we don't effectively manage it, nothing else that we do matters. And so special education directors are a lot of times charged with, hey, just keep us out of jail, very outlandish things, not real support, but they are responsible for sometimes the academics, the finance, the staffing, the compliance, with no direction, no feedback, no guidance, and they are receiving some things from the state. But again, if that effort is not collaborative with the teachers who are working with the students, who are very well versed in how to scaffold things, and a lot of times they know programs that we are spending money on that are not working, don't work. Sometimes they're not even asked their opinions about, oh, well, what are your thoughts on this? Or let's look at the data, because really we need to stop depending on thoughts and perceptions and really look at the data. What is the data saying? This may be a good intervention for students in tier 2 and tier 3, but when we're looking at our special education population, those are the students that are not moving with this program. So the other thing that I'm going to talk about today with those attending my session is that we also have to look at return on investment. A lot of times return on investment is something that's associated with business, and in education, we don't have that mindset, but we have to look at return on investment, because if we're investing large sums of money into computerized programs or things that are very expensive, packaged programs that are not working for our students, we are not benefiting our students. So we definitely have to be more intentional about looking at what we're investing in and making sure that we're actually following those things that have been identified as best practices and research-based things that work. And I'm going to go over several research-based items that are helpful for students in special education programs in my session today.
And that thing about the return on investment, Sheka, that's so important about what they can hear from you is, from a business perspective, we talk about that from us with when we are profiting, when we're losing. But
Mhm.
that same analogy holds true for academia, because
Mhm.
when you're talking about if there's a program that is not working for your students, it's up to you as the principal of that school, as the teacher in that classroom, to advocate for having the opportunity to do something else. We're actually having some of those discussions in the coming week. There's a few things that we're doing right now that aren't getting me the kind of growth that I've seen in the past.
Mhm.
I'm going to be advocating for going back to what I know works best in my particular setting. If
Mhm.
we don't look at the return on investment, we can't have those kinds of conversations. So I think it's going to be very, again, powerful for you to share that with those folks who are going to be fortunate enough to be a part of your session.
Well, thank you, Tammy. And one other thing that I would like to bring up that I'm going to bring awareness to, a lot of people know about the definition for special education and how we identify students ages 3 to 21 for the school system, but there are also early interventions in place for birth through 3 years old. And if you are able to identify students early enough, sometimes that really helps to where they may not even need that level of help or be identified for special education when they get into the school system. And as educators, a lot of times when parents come in with children, you recognize as the educator that, wow, that they look like they may be suffering from developmental delays, because a lot of times that's what it is, some type of developmental delay. And really what it is that, there was one parent who talked about how her child was not speaking verbal yet. And so children, and the question was, well, hey, do you talk to her? Because they learn how to talk from hearing you speak. But some people don't know that when I had my children, I would sit on the bed with them, folding up clothes, and we would have a full conversation, going around the house, identifying, oh, this is the kitchen, and it looks crazy to people, but that's how children learn how to speak. But some people, are not familiar with that. So when you educate people, when you let them know, these are the things that we should be doing to make sure our children are developing properly, then, they're able to do that. But what I really wanted to bring awareness to was one of the programs here in South Carolina that are in place, and you'll have to research it for your own state, but through BabyNet, that is how we serve children from birth to 3 years old for developmental delays. And there's a company that's one of our community partners, About Play, located in Columbia, South Carolina. They actually serve children in 27 counties in our state. They go into the home and they help the parents understand what needs to happen and what they need to do, what strategies they need to do to reverse some of those developmental delays, or to make sure that students are progressing to their next milestone. Because if children don't have sufficient health care and they're not going to the doctor to understand what those next milestones should be and what those milestones look like, they don't know, that a child should be at a certain level. So when they get to us, we recognize that, oh, wow, they're so far behind. But if we catch those things early, and a lot of times they're right in the office with us where we can educate parents and catch them early, that will really diminish the number of students that are being identified when they do get to school.
Absolutely. And that's a very important thing, especially for elementary principals, making sure that, like About Play has their respective place in the community, in those partnerships with pediatric offices, with daycares, with all those places where children can begin to get those interventions, help, because when they get to your school, those kids are not as far behind. Sometimes they don't even have any delays anymore at all, because those developmental delays that are being addressed can help to catch those kids up and put them in line with where their peers are. So I think it's really, really important. And I think the work that companies like About Play do is really fascinating because, again, when you're there to help those kids to develop language, because in some of the homes, they don't have access to books. And, we've talked about that lots of times, Sheka, how just reading to your children increases their vocabulary exponentially. So when you have those systems in place that can help to avoid those kids having to fall into special ed, that also is a plus for our communities.
It is. And I love the fact that they actually go to the home. It's not like the parent has to take the child anywhere. They come to you. And so what that does is allow the parent to be able to observe when they leave, what they can continue to do to help that child to continue to develop and continue to be on a trajectory to meet those important milestones.
Absolutely.
So the last thing I want to mention, and we're going to jump off because we're at our time. One other important thing that we have done is that we attended dyslexia training for the district, and we're going to make sure that that training is also extended to our psychologists who identify students for special education, as well as our special needs educators, as well as our interventionists, because what we found is that there is misconceptions around what dyslexia is. And even I had it. I thought dyslexia was only seeing words or letters backwards or misplaced, but it's actually a neurobiological disorder that has a lot to do with not being able to decode words. And many of our students have problems with decoding, but because we don't have people that are trained with that dyslexia background and know how to address decoding, what they're putting in the academics or the accommodation plans for students are things that have to do with comprehension or things that are unrelated. So more training is definitely needed, I think, across the country, probably for dyslexia, because I don't think that a lot of educators understand what is all engulfed in that. And there's a lot of great information that we obtain for our training that's really going to be impactful for our students with reading and decoding.
And I do think that it's important to just footnote, and we're getting out of here so we can get on with the Principal Kafele, America's Principal Kafele. Dyslexia screeners are becoming very, very popular in schools, and we are getting some really good information from those to make instructional decisions for our kids on.
Definitely. Thank you all for joining us. If you're
at SCASB, go see Sheka in her section.
Yes. Definitely thank you for joining us. And if you all are staying on, Principal Kafele is on next. He has an awesome guest on with him today that he is interviewing. Visit our website for the resources and tools that we have for parents and educators, anyone that is working with children. Our website is www.createandeducate.solutions. So thank you all again.
Guys. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. And happy MLK weekend. We salute his legacy. So thank you, guys.
Yes. Thank you.